My therapist broke confidentiality and told my abusive ex-husband where I was living because they were old college friends, and he convinced her I was the dangerous one. I'd been seeing Dr. Morrison for 6 months to deal with PTSD from my marriage to Derek, and she specialized in domestic violence survivors and came highly recommended by the women's shelter that helped me escape. I trusted her with everything: the restraining order, the safe house addresses I'd burned through, the new identity I was building, how Derek had put me in the hospital twice, how he'd threatened to kill me if I ever left. She listened and took notes and told me I was brave and that I was doing the right thing. I'd been in my new apartment for 3 months in a different city with a different name on the lease, no social media, burner phone. I'd done everything right. Then one night I came home from my job at the library and found Derek sitting on my couch, and my blood went ice cold because the apartment door was locked when I came in, which meant he had a key. He smiled at me like we were old friends and asked if I missed him. I asked him how he found me, my voice shaking, already calculating distances. Door behind me, kitchen knives to the left, bedroom window that didn't open. He told me Dr. Morrison had given him my address because she was worried about me and thought I'd been lying to her about him. I couldn't believe my therapist would do that, but he explained that Dr. Morrison was his friend from college, that he'd known her for 20 years, and when he told her I'd been having psychotic episodes and making up abuse stories, she realized she needed to help him get me into treatment. I told him that wasn't true, that she knew what he'd done because I'd shown her the hospital records and the police reports. He pulled out his phone and said those were the reports where I'd attacked him, and he had to defend himself. Then he showed me emails from Dr. Morrison with all my session notes, descriptions of my delusions and paranoia, and how I couldn't accept responsibility for my own violence. My stomach dropped because I could see Dr. Morrison's professional address right there, forwarded session summaries. My new address highlighted in yellow. He said she did it because she cared and grabbed my arm hard enough to bruise, telling me we were going home and I was getting the help I needed. I yanked away and ran for the door, got it open and screamed for help. My neighbor Tom heard and came running, and Derek instantly let go, backing up with his hands raised, telling Tom I'd run away from a psychiatric facility and wasn't safe alone. I was crying, telling Tom that Derek was my abuser and I had a restraining order. Tom looked between us, clearly confused, and said he was calling the police. The cops arrived 10 minutes later and I showed them my restraining order, showed them Derek was violating it by being there, and they arrested him on the spot. But that wasn't the end, because 2 days later Dr. Morrison called me and said we needed to have a session to discuss my paranoid delusions about Derek. She'd reviewed my case with a colleague and believed I was experiencing a psychotic break and wanted to have me committed for my own safety. I recorded the call and asked her directly if she'd given Derek my address, and she admitted it, saying she had a duty to warn when a patient was a danger to others, that Derek had showed her evidence I was violent and unstable, that confidentiality didn't apply when someone was at risk. I reported her to the state licensing board that same day with the recording, the emails Derek had showed me, the police report from his arrest. The board launched an investigation, and it turned out Dr. Morrison and Derek had been more than college friends. They'd dated for 3 years, and she'd introduced him to his first wife. When that marriage ended in divorce with a restraining order too, Dr. Morrison had believed his story that the wife was crazy. The board found that Dr. Morrison had violated HIPAA, breached confidentiality, and failed to recognize a conflict of interest, but their recommendation was just a $5,000 fine and mandatory ethics training. She could keep her license and keep practicing. Derek got 60 days in jail for violating the restraining order and was out in 40 with good behavior. 2 months after he was released, another one of Dr. Morrison's patients was murdered by her ex-husband, and it turned out Dr. Morrison had told him where to find her too, saying the husband seemed genuinely concerned, and she didn't want to violate his rights by refusing to help him locate his mentally ill wife. The patient's name was Jennifer, and she was 32 and had 2 kids. Her ex shot her in her driveway while the children watched from the car. That's when I knew reporting Dr. Morrison to the licensing board wasn't enough. We had to destroy her completely. Full story on channel link below.